Good morning and welcome to Blueprint for Change, an information sharing event about the transformative Gainesville Empowerment Zone Family Learning Center that's sponsored by Gainesville for All. I'm Edward Block. I'm an emeritus distinguished professor from the University of Florida College of Medicine, and I serve as the chair of a community advisory group that advises Gainesville for All and its executive director, James Lawrence, who's in the front row here. As many of you know, Gainesville for All is a 501c3 nonprofit. It was formed in 2016 with strong support from the Community Foundation of North Central Florida and the Gainesville Sun. The goal of Gainesville for All is to seek systemic solutions to persistent problems linked to race and poverty in Alachua County. Gainesville for All works to address disparities such as those that were documented in the 2018 Friendship 7 study entitled Understanding Racial Inequity in Alachua County. That study, which I regard as a landmark study, documented that Gainesville was among the worst cities in the nation, not just in Florida, when it comes to disparity between Blacks and whites. One startling data point from that study of many illustrates the heart of the problem. 27.7% of Black third grade students in Gainesville demonstrated reading proficiency, whereas 74% of white third grade students demonstrated reading proficiency. That report concluded that providing a high quality educational experience for minority children will have a significant impact on this education achievement gap, and that it should be a top priority for Gainesville. Education experts, many of whom are in this audience, widely agree that a successfully educated resident will have a higher lifetime income, more and better employment opportunities, and are less likely to become involved with our criminal justice system. Science has shown that 90% of a child's brain architecture is formed in the first 5 years of life, and that early learning is the way forward. Early learning is the way forward. The identification of the problem in Alachua County and the recognition of the solution provided by this landmark 2018 study prompted Gainesville for All to establish as its top priority the creation of a family learning center, and I stress the word family, within the Gainesville Empowerment Zone, identified by Gainesville for All as its demonstration community in East Gainesville. And it roughly corresponds to the 32609 zip code. Now, if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes an entire community like Alachua County to narrow, if not eliminate, the devastating education achievement gap between white and Black students in our community. Aware of this, Gainesville for All is partnering with many agencies in the community, including but not limited to the Alachua County School District, the Gainesville Sun, the Early Learning Coalition of Alachua County, the Children's Trust of Alachua County, the College of Education at the University of Florida, Insight.org, the Gannett Foundation, and the City of Gainesville. As one example of these partnerships, the Alachua County School District, through a unanimous vote of its board of directors in February of this year, provided Building 11 on the Metcalf Elementary School campus in East Gainesville, that's a 7,700 square foot facility, to be the home of the Family Learning Center. In one other example of our fruitful partnerships, faculty members of the Zucker and Lastinger Centers at the University of Florida College of Education have agreed to work with Gainesville for All staff and advisors to design a beyond the state-of-the-art curriculum for the Family Learning Center and to help Gainesville for All to use the latest research tools to track the progress of the students enrolled in our Family Learning Center. Because, as I said earlier, 90% of a child's critical brain structure is formed within the first 5 years of life, our center is going to be enrolling families expecting children and families with children from 6 weeks of age up to 4 years. Parents will be integrally involved with and active in the Family Learning Center programs, and they will be connected by center staff to vital local social support and healthcare options, to parental coaching and job counseling, as well as to state and national community service agencies. Creating a family learning center that is beyond state-of-the-art in its curriculum, that has an approach that specifically addresses the learning needs of very young children from struggling families, and at the same time is research-based in its tracking and assessments, is our mission and our goal. One whose success can not only be transformative for our community, but can serve as a template, a blueprint for change for other communities around Florida and the nation facing education achievement gaps similar to ours. I want to at this point introduce our next speaker. I'm delighted to be able to introduce Shane Andrew, who is the interim superintendent of the Alachua County Public Schools district system. He's a longtime resident of Gainesville and Alachua County, and he has been serving students and staff of the Alachua County School District for over 30 years. He's been principal of almost every middle or high school that I can figure out in the county. I think you've missed a few, I know, and there you were assistant principals in the ones you missed. But anyway, tremendous experience. And right before he was promoted to interim superintendent, he was the chief of operations for the school system. Our primary partner in this exercise this event and our goal towards getting a family learning center has been the Alachua County School District. And so we are pleased to have you here, Mr. Andrew, and thank you and all of your colleagues and all the board members who supported the memorandum of understanding that we have between our organization and yours.
Good morning. Thank you. So yes, there's a lot of partners. So I would say everyone is a primary partner, and we appreciate the recognition, but it certainly takes everyone to make this a success. As the interim superintendent of Alachua County Public Schools, and on behalf of the School Board of Alachua County, we just wanted to make sure that everyone shares our excitement and joins in our excitement about our partnership with Gainesville4ALL. As you all know, we're collaborating to provide a multitude of supports for expectant parents, not just at 6 weeks, but in talking to Mr. Lawrence, it's my understanding that we're going to be working with expectant mothers as well. And then at 6 weeks, take them in to our Family Learning Center. So we're going to work with children from birth, of course, until they enter kindergarten. So preschool truly is that entire period of time prior to kindergarten. It's not just 4-year-olds, it's not just 3-year-olds. And I think collectively, if we all continue to push to remind everyone, pre-K starts at birth. It's not a age, it's a period of time and multiple years. So just to get that message out and that plug, I know that we all know that, but oftentimes when it comes to federal dollars and state dollars and local dollars, we are more than thankful for pre-K that Mr. Lawrence worked on, starting with 4th graders for all, and 4-year-olds for all. But I'll be quiet there because I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but we're grateful for all of that work. The Gainesville Empowerment Zone Family Learning Center, as you all heard, is located right next door to Metcalf Elementary School, and it's across the street from Howard Bishop Middle School. So in talking with Mr. Lawrence a couple of weeks ago, our hope is parents will not only put their youngest children at the Learning Center, at the Family Learning Center, but if they have other students who are of elementary age or middle age, that they'll go ahead and enroll them apply for a zoning exception and have their students go to school right there, where it's much more convenient for them for transportation or checking out children or checking on them, whatever it might be, going to events at their school. If it's all centrally located, we hope that will be of service to them. And the fact is, we have seats available at both schools. So we want the word to get out there to families. Hey, come bring your children to the Family Learning Center. And those other students in K through 8 can get right into 2 brand new facilities, state-of-the-art learning centers themselves, and see their children from 6 weeks old to 8th grade right there in the hub of the empowerment zone in our community. So that's our collective goal and vision that Mr. Lawrence has shared with me. So I'm just excited to be part of it. As you know, this learning center is going to provide children and their parents with access, and we always talk about access and equity, but sometimes there's too much talk and not enough action. So this will truly provide access and prepare students for kindergarten, but well beyond that. You know, we want to take students from birth to their careers, from birth to college. We want to see them all the way through, and we want this to be an opportunity for generational change. And we know it can be, because that's where we've fallen short, is preparing all of our children for their careers and their college that's ahead of them. So certainly we'll also have wraparound services, and we already do some of that, but Mr. Lawrence has worked closely with Mrs. Carter on wraparound services, and it's truly a collaborative effort with multiple departments within the school system. So that's a joy to see all of that coming together, and we're relying on each other's expertise to truly make this as wraparound as possible for health services, for social emotional, for mental health, and of course the academic, but you have to take care of everything else before you get to academics. And so we're hoping to move forward with that. And Mr. Lawrence has really done a lot of work in making sure he has community partners lined up to provide services to the family. So it will end up being a community family learning center as we move forward. So we do believe in their strategic approach to support the students within our community, those that have been born and not born yet. So we desire, of course, to work with Executive Director Lawrence and his team to successfully serve our students and families in the community, and engage with all opportunities ahead of us. We see it as opportunities, not so much challenges, but opportunities for us to do a better job for everyone in Alachua County. We owe it to our children. There's been all kinds of gaps. You know, we talk about achievement gaps, but there's been all kinds of access gaps and equity gaps for a long time. And historically, that's just gone on in Alachua County for way, way too long. And so we do need to take action, and we're working on this collectively. I've met with Ms. Curry and others as a team, and we truly are bringing everyone to the table, because this is our county, our challenges, and we can do it together. But we, Alachua County Public Schools, can't do it alone. The city of Gainesville can't do it alone. UF Santa Fe, the county. So we're really working on what does that look like, and how do we turn that into action instead of just meetings. So that being said, I digress. We're just grateful for all of these collaborative efforts, and certainly for all of our partners that have graciously supported the Gainesville Empowerment Zone Family Learning Center to date. What I do want to encourage everyone in attendance is to touch base with your friends. You know, you don't have to have money to support these efforts. Time, volunteering, being that extra reader to young children, supporting Executive Director Lawrence with whatever programs he has within the school itself, the Learning Center. You know, that volunteerism is a form of support we need. Of course, we're always willing to accept financial support as well, but that's not the only way to volunteer. And we're grateful. I couldn't name everybody, but you know, the Children's Trust, I mentioned the university, the city, the county, Santa Fe College. We're just grateful for everybody pulling together, the chamber, to support these efforts. So we're really forging ahead with those types of collaborative efforts and partnerships. And again, we're thankful, Mr. Lawrence, for your leadership. We welcome Mr. Lawrence Jr., Mr. David Lawrence Jr. to Alachua County, and we honor him. I know he's done a lot of work for children, for preschool age children, and for that, we're grateful because somebody has to be a voice. And we all need to be a voice. We all need to be at the table, and we all need to work hard to include others. And we've talked about this too. Ms. Curry and I were in on a conversation of that inclusion piece is doing things with other people, not just by ourselves or what we think they need, but including our citizens, the young families, the young mothers, the children. Children can teach us a lot if we listen and ask them, what do they need? Now, I know that doesn't work with a 9-month-old, but certainly kids can tell you at a young age what they need, and then listening to our community members, and community members being those that don't come to meetings, those that don't go online and fill out forms and surveys. So we really look forward to engaging everyone as we move forward. So with that being said, I just thank you for your time today. And I do thank you for your support of our children here in Alachua County.
Good morning, everybody. I am really, really excited. I'm excited about today. We've been planning this day now for quite some time, and it really started with that young lady right there, our city manager, Ms. Corey, who spoke to us at Gainesville4ALL back in January, and she casually mentioned my brother from another mother. And I was started to think about that. I got right on the phone the next morning and I called my brother from another mother down in South Florida. And, you know, it has just been he's been a real treasure in terms of his responsiveness to what we're trying to do here in Gainesville. We've been on the phone at least once a week. And he's one of the most busiest people that I know. You know, we're both supposed to be retired, but we're just so grateful that he is in our presence. And I'm not going to be up here long. I want to thank Mr. Andrew, our interim superintendent. He just gave you my little speech for the most part. So I'm going to give you a progress report. But before I do that, I have to. So please bear with me. I have to thank some people in this room because you have had such a huge part in bringing us to where we are. And yes, we have a ways to go, but there are many who never thought we would make it this far. And it is because of the help that and support that we have both morally and financially, and just sometimes a pat on the back that we've been getting over the past several years that has got us this far. So if you will, I want to again thank Mr. Andrew, for the school district's participation and enthusiastic participation that they're showing as we start to move forward with this very, very important project. Now, I must really also thank the school board itself, all members of the board. In fact, they unanimously, now we all know it's not very often that we see the school board vote unanimously on anything, but they voted unanimously to support Gainesville4ALL. And that was a major hurdle. And that spoke loudly spoke loudly to the merit of what it is that we're trying to do with this project, because this is not just a high quality child care center in the Gainesville Empowerment Zone. You know, we really hope and believe that we can be a template for the redesign of public education as we know it in the 21st century. We believe that. We believe that. And we can do that right here in Gainesville, Florida. So watch our smoke, watch our smoke. So, but let me just say this too, that I must point out that the board, I definitely appreciate all that, you know, you guys are doing and have done, but I have to point out there are two members of that board who have been intimately involved with Gainesville for All almost since the day that we started. And I just want to publicly thank them. That would be Dr. Leonetta McNeely and Tina Certain. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I also would like to give a shout out to our strategic planning team. We put together a team of people, educators, community activists who spent 4.5, almost 5 months putting together our playbook. If you haven't read it, it's 22 pages, it's online, and it lays out in detail what it is that we hope to accomplish and how we plan to accomplish it. So this is the document. And I just would like to also publicly thank the members of that team, starting with Charmaine Henry. She is a retired founder of the Genesis Charter School. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us. She's recovering from some surgery. There is Dr. Elizabeth Bondi from the University of Florida College of Education. There's Marilyn McCall, who's the founder of My School Child Care Center here in Gainesville, and community activists Yolanda Hagley Fluellen and Ellie Chisholm. So those are the people who sat around the table and really put in the work and the brain power to put this together, our Bible, our play-by-play book. And we're going to follow this in implementing our family learning center. So, and I would also be remiss if I didn't just quick shout out for my team members here who lead. We have Lawrence Certain over there, and Joyce and Boise, and those are the guys who have been with us, and Wendy since almost day one, and all the work that they've done to keep Gainesville for All going as a vibrant part of this community, to deal with the issues of race and poverty. And, you know, we opened our doors back in 2016, many of you may recall, and those doors are still open despite the pandemic, because we are committed to change. And you can't be committed and just do a little bit and be satisfied. You have to stay and you have to really hammer at it to make it happen. And we're willing to do that. We're willing to do that. And I think after 5.5 years, we've demonstrated that we are willing. Not only are we willing, we have done it. And we have a track record that shows some of the achievements that we've made. So I just needed to say that, and we're going to get to David, but I need to kind of give you more of a global view of, you know, how we got here. And I am so elated by this. You know, last Friday, we had, that place was bustling with energy. You know, we just got the key a couple of weeks ago, you know, but we had Cox Communication. Hello, guys. You know, they were over there. By the way, they're helping us with all kinds of communication and the internet services and all of that. So we're really grateful for you guys and for what you're doing. Also, we had our our yard groundskeeper, he was running through the place. We had just a number of electricians, people coming through, helping us, and most of them giving us their services or giving services to us at a drastically reduced cost. And so that's what we're trying to model here, is how community, this is not just Gainesville for All. It's Gainesville for All trying to harness the energy of the community, all these services that are out here that are being underutilized. We're trying to link them all together and show that through that link, we can help change the system. The systems are not working right now. They're not working the way they ought to be working, so we're going to be that link to bring people together. We're going to be that link to reach out to fathers in our community who may not be involved in their children's lives to the extent that they ought to be. We're going to be that link, that to provide, maybe you need affordable housing, maybe you need maybe even drug treatment, maybe you need medical care, whatever those services are, we're going to be there to help direct you to those services, because we believe if we can stabilize many of these families, that the children coming from those families will perform better in the classroom. So it all works together, and none of this is rocket science. It's not rocket science, but it hasn't really been done. So we want to do it, and we want to show that doing it can work, can succeed. One other person that I really need to point out to you is Marion Ratson over here. Marion is someone who has really been diligent. Our MOU with the school district and our lease agreement, that was not easy. Andrew, you weren't there, but it was not easy. Miss Carter Jackson, it was not easy. It was not easy, but we made it through, and we had Mr. Ratson over there, who, by the way, is your former city attorney for more than 2 decades, who volunteered and continues to volunteer. He doesn't know it. He thought he was just volunteering for that segment, but he's just gotten going. Yes, he has not been answering my phone as usual, though. I've noticed that. I've noticed that. He's trying, James, I've done enough. Well, you can't do too much for this community. You really can't. You really can't. But I just want to acknowledge that. And at the risk of most of you, some of you with Gainesville for All t-shirts on, you know how much I really value you and all that you've done. And not just for Gainesville for All, because when you're doing it through Gainesville for All, you're really doing it for the community. And I've only been here for about 6 years now. This is a great community in many regards. And yeah, we have our share of issues here, but every place I've lived, and throughout my journalism career, I've lived as far west as Denver, Colorado, as far north as Rochester and Cleveland, same problems. And I guess I find that in my retirement, wait a minute, I graduated back in the 70s from Howard University with a commitment to eliminate some of these problems. And I tried the best that I could, as an editorial page editor for 23 plus years in Rochester. But, I look back, and I said this in my parting column, is that I'm not seeing the change that I wanted to see. There's a saying, be the change that you want to see. And I believe that. So I'm trying to do that. And I think that we as a community, if we take on that mantra of, yes, we talk a lot about change, but we really have to get into it and really forge the kind of change that we talk about. And so with all of that, I'm going to turn this over to my good brother, and my newest friend. He is someone most of you know. No, but I got to say this one. No, yes, I do. I got one thing.
Been introduced here already.
one thing. This guy that I really love about him. After I don't know if you read his book. It's called A Dedicated Life, and it really lays it all out. But as I read that, there was just so much in there that reminded me of my growing up, my own personal values. You know, I mean, your love for journalism, your love for faith, and your love for family, and your love for justice. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, my friend.
Single best introduction I've ever had. So I wrote a speech. I have a whole file folder with a speech in it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you how I got here and how that might be pertinent to yourselves. So I turned 80 last month. And we're now clapping for people who outlive their lives. Extraordinary. And I have some wisdom now and a lot of scar tissue. And I would like to live long enough to be able to use more of it. I have 5 children, ages 57 to 37. I've been married for 58 years. I love my wife more than when we were married. And we were married on the day that I was graduated from this university, December 21st, 1963. There was a book, some of you may remember, by a rabbi about bad things happening to good people. So my wife has Alzheimer's. How many people have had it somewhere in their family? Wow, huge percentage of people here. And we're all mortal. And life in its own way is fairly simple. I'm as idealistic and optimistic as I was 60, 70 years ago. That's a bit naive. But I've gotten far more done by expecting good things. Expecting good things from my own children, expecting good things from other people's children. By knowing that there was a power within each of us to do extraordinary things. And this, what we're talking about today, could be a quite extraordinary thing. I don't play golf. I don't belong to country clubs. I don't play tennis. I read at least 2 books a week, mostly history and biographies. It worries me that young people know very little history. So I do a book group in my home for people, about 25 people, and they're in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. I want them to know, for instance, that Hitler came to power legally. The stormtroopers didn't bring him in. He was chosen by the people. The business community said, we can manage this guy. And then ultimately 60 million human beings are dead. I'm a life member of the NAACP, have been for 40 years. I'm not saving my energy for the next world. I'm at the point in my life, I'm a lifelong Roman Catholic, baptized in St. Patrick's, not a simple country church in New York. But I'm at the point in my life where I do not think God had a plan to make me Catholic and you Jewish and you Muslim and you Methodist. But I think spiritual growth is stunningly important for human beings. And when I think of children growing, I want them to grow not only cognitively and physically and emotionally and socially and behavioral and developmentally, but I want them to grow spiritually as well. I want people to understand there's something higher and better than any one of us. So we raised 5 children. I work in 7 different communities as reporter, editor, or publisher. And in 1996, I am the publisher of the Miami Herald. Now, younger people won't know this, but the newspaper business was a very powerful instrument, extraordinarily powerful instrument. And seemingly it wasn't true. Everybody read the newspaper. What it had to say meant something really special. And daily newspapers have been mostly shredded. I see only 3 newspapers in the country that I have any real sense that there will be editions in print 7 days a week for the rest of my life, and they're called the Post, the Journal, and the Times. And people think they read something on, see something on the iPhone, and they know what's happening in the world. And you really don't that way. In 1996, Lawton Childs asked me to chair a statewide task force on school readiness. I'd never even heard of the subject. What I came to know were the principles of early childhood care, development, and education I think our children generally had. They were in a loving home, had 2 parents who took the time, didn't use television as a babysitter. A little bit of Sesame Street is good, but don't do too much. People need to talk with other human beings, sing with other human beings, be hugged by other human beings. And I insist that a single parent could raise a spectacular child, and frequently do. But I would also say that you would prefer to have 2 loving, caring, nurturing, knowledgeable adults in the home if you could do that. And we live in a state where 40% of births are to single parents, half of whom don't have a significant other. So that tells me of the 220,000 children born a year in the state of Florida, 45,000 fit in the latter category. God, it's tough. And then you come to a community like Miami, which is 9 times the population of Alachua County, but the principles are exactly the same. Come to a community like my community or yours, enormous poverty. If you check, you'll find that I've been a registered independent for decades upon decades. And so I'm not all caught up in this liberal, conservative, right, left, etc. But I do have strong feelings that we're breaking up into tribes and we're not listening to one another. And you can't learn by talking. You learn by listening to other people. And what I learned from this task force was a revelation to me. Indeed, I came to think it was the future of this republic. I had long believed, and believe even more fervently now, that children who grow up without hope are dangerous to themselves and dangerous to other human beings. I'll frequently ask an audience, what was the civil rights movement about? And I'll invariably be told it was about minorities and Black people and so forth and so on. That isn't the right answer in my estimation. The civil rights movement was about an American sense of equity, about everyone. We're trying to do something in this country it's never been done before. We're trying to diminish racism. And I won't get all embedded into the discussion today, but racism is embedded in every corner of our society. And this isn't about creative race theory or some other things that people are talking about. I want everyone to know the lessons of this country so we learn from them. So yes, I've read the 1619 Project and I've read CAST, both of which I would recommend, but I've also read a lot of other things with some different perspectives. I've been in 56 countries. I've never been in a country without racism. And that includes the Democratic Republic of Congo, where I interviewed child rape victims, or Bangladesh, where I talked about microlending. And you'll never overcome racism unless you confront yourself. I need to confront myself. I could be the most thoughtful, sensitive, compassionate, non-Hispanic white person you've ever met. I'm not. But if I were, and I told you I know what it was like to be Black or transgender or gay or lesbian or lots of other things, you need to be very worried about me. And what we're doing, in my view, is God's work. This is the work we were set upon this earth to do. And if we don't do something about diminishing the travail and the trash among each other, we're going to destroy this republic of 330 million people. It is not guaranteed. I'm more worried about this country than I ever have been. What's the answer? The superintendent would tell you, and I'd agree, that a huge part of this is education. But I want, and he's already expressed this, I want education to begin way before formal school. I want people to understand the first 18 months of language development. I want them to understand the first 3 years of life. We could have an extraordinary VPK program of the highest quality, and only high quality brings real outcomes. But we need to pay far more attention earlier than that. It is stunning what children can do and what they're thinking. I went to Reggio Emilia some years ago, and if you don't know what it is, look it up. In northern Italy, stunning what children can do. All 5 of our children went to Montessori. We weren't trying to drive them out of the home. We wanted them not only to learn some things, we wanted them to know how to play with other children. There's so many lessons to be learned from play. Now, you have about 40 schools, right, Mr. Superintendent, in this community, and 90% of children basically go to public school. I'm a full product of public school and public university, this one. I'm one of 9 children on a farm that went broke in upstate New York. And all 9 of us were graduated from either Florida or Florida State. We came here when there were only 3 universities: Florida, Florida State, and Florida A&M. They're now 12. I want people to understand that unless we devote much more effort and reason and science and love, we're in trouble. And I say love and say it all the time, because people who grow up without love are in terrible trouble. They hurt themselves and they can hurt other people very badly. And what I learned from 2 years chairing this task force, out of which came the School Readiness Act of 1999, out of which comes Jackie Hodges' Early Learning Coalition. It was signed by Jeb Bush in the summer of 1999. And it does quite remarkable work. And it's an extraordinary partner for what you all are trying to build here. Or the Children's Trust. I want people to understand the power you have within you, but you got to use the power together, or we're all rent asunder. In 1988, a woman named Janet Reno, and please tell me you remember her name, was the state attorney of what was called Dade County. And she tried to pass what you all call the Children's Trust. And she argued we ought to help children over here, here, and here, meaning stereotypically minorities, at-risk, disadvantaged. It failed 2-1. Now, what do you pay county commissioners here? Okay, we pay $6,000. Been on the ballot 12 times. We're a quite tax-averse county. We have a county budget of $9 billion. Now, nothing I remember from any political science course at the University of Florida said, God, this is real smart. Pay them $6,000 and this will work out really well. And look at all the money we've saved. So I spent 2 years of my life, in addition to my other duties, trying to get this passed. I raised a good deal of money because you need to run a political campaign. When you all ran something here, you might have been on the side of the angels, but you were running a political campaign. And this is what you're doing now. You're running a political campaign. I'm not talking about Democrats and Republicans. In fact, I put, as Cynthia Curry will remember, a 5-year sunset on it and said, try it for 5 years. If you don't like it, dump it. We passed it 2-1. It came up again in 2008 in August. What was happening then? The Great Recession was going on. And since Miami is a get rich quick place, it's a get poor quick place. I promise you, in history, that's the story. This time we passed it with 84.5% of the vote. Does that mean somehow there was something in the water and people now love children but didn't before? I don't think so. Trust is the central issue. And as you're figuring out what you're going to do together, trust needs to be at the core of it. Convening needs to be the core of it. If there were a children's czar named in Miami-Dade, that person would be dead before morning. Children's advocates are frequently like crabs in a bucket. Can you think of the metaphor and how it works? Ain't nobody getting out of the damn bucket. I've seen they crawl up and we drag them down. That's tragic. The whole future of this community depends on what I'm talking about. And you're a different community in some significant ways. You have two great, not just one great, two great higher education institutions here, stunningly good, with maybe a bunch of people who sometimes can live pretty insulated, isolated lives and not really pay attention to other folks who might have it some different. So the power in this community is the power to convene. Now, there are times in life and work of momentum and reverse momentum. If I'm understanding and reading right, a lot of crappy things have gone on recently in this community. Is that right? You're being divided. You got interim this and interim that and so on and so forth. And you see it in all your elected bodies, or at least 2 out of 3 significantly. And the issues we're talking about today are more important than those. I often think that if people ever aggregated their power, it would be a mighty engine. So I think of children with special needs. 1 out of every 6 children in America is a child with a special need. You deal with a lot of them in your school system, Mr. Superintendent. But because this person is focused on cerebral palsy and this person is focused on ADHD and this person is focused on autism, we don't aggregate the power, so we don't have much power. Coming together, gathering, listening. Nobody's going to be the power person here, but you're going to have a convener. and make this work, and you're doing something enormously special. So if 90% of people go to the public school system, and charter schools are public schools, if 90% people go, then the public school system seems to me terribly important. And I'm not denying the importance of independent, private, parochial, et cetera, schools. I'm involved in a huge project in Miami called Cristo Rey. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's worth you looking up. There are 39 of them in the country. I want people to understand the school system and early learning and childcare in terms of feeder patterns. Mr. Superintendent, do you have feeder patterns?
Yes, sir.
And what are they? Just so everybody knows what a feeder pattern is. What's a feeder pattern?
Basically, for the elementary feeds into the middle.
Okay, elementary to middle of high school. I want you to start thinking, if you're not already, of what we're talking about today as a feeder pattern. Look at the discussion that goes on in administration after administration, whether it's state or federal, about public education reform. You put me in charge, but don't. Put me in charge, I'd have a heck of a time fixing the 4th grade or the 7th grade or the 11th grade. And you all have alarming statistics, but you're not alone. When you have precious few, more than half of the children in 3rd and 4th grades who are reading at minimally proficient levels, you don't have an Alachua problem. You have an American problem. And when I went to high school, we were the #1 high school system in the world, and we were the #1 university system in the world. We aren't that anymore. We're leaving an extraordinary number of people out. And if I were in the early learning space and in the school, public school space or any school space, I'd be figuring, how do I connect these things? From before birth to the infant program you talk about, to VPK, to what are we doing for people in between and so forth. How many people here from time to time feel pretty darn uptight and nervous and worried and insecure? Raise your hands. The rest of you are really dangerous human beings. I'm nervous when I'm doing this. And this is at least the 4th or 5th time I've ever done this, as a matter of fact. I'm nervous, uptight. I do better when I'm nervous because I'm testing myself. I'm seeing what kind of reactions you have. When do you laugh? When do you check out? When are you looking at your iPhones and so forth? Thank you for showing your hands, ma'am. Appreciate it. No. So I think it's healthy to be nervous as long as you have enough chutzpah to go ahead and do something. But just imagine the American tragedy of somebody who is 5 years old or 6 years old, who's already making up his or her mind, I can't do this stuff. And so they act up and out and get labeled and special tracked. I'm not talking about everybody. There's extraordinary teachers in this school system and in Miami. But I guarantee if we started all over, not every one of the teachers would be there. Is that fair, Mr. Superintendent? Yes. And how important are teachers? We didn't have kindergarten where I was. It's not because I was born before the advent of kindergarten. Anybody know when kindergarten was invented? 1837 by a German named Froebel. Means garden of children. Comes to America in the middle 1850s, in 1856, in Wisconsin, in German. It was a state of much German immigration. And then it comes to Boston through a famous American family called Peabody. If you look at the history of St. Augustine and civil rights, you'll see another Peabody from that same family down the line. But for most of its life, kindergarten was for two kinds of children. Now, one correct answer would be boys and girls, but that's not what I'm looking for at this moment. The correct answer would be the very well off and the very poor off. And if you think to yourself, boy, that's pretty much America today, right? We got something here and here, but we don't have a lot in between. And that's why building a movement is so important. It's why high quality is so important. To repeat, only high quality brings real outcomes. And they need to be measured. So what James Lawrence is doing, as he attests and the school superintendent agrees and affirms, you need to know that this stuff works. What are we doing up front? And it's not just 1 year. So there was this big dispute some years ago about Head Start, no lasting, no enduring effect. Didn't surprise me. The enduring effect is the continuum, is doing things right way back here and through here. And my own version of early childhood is age 8. Do all the years right, and you're going to have something. You're going to have extraordinary people who contribute in bunches of different ways, including don't need to be incarcerated. They buy cars, they pay taxes, they buy homes, and so forth and so on. What kind of state are we really? And I use the state because I live in the state and you live in the state where we think it's progress, where we're now paying a bit over $2,500 per slot in VPK. And we're spending, what, $8,000 in public education. And north of $20,000 to incarcerate inmates. And $50,000 to incarcerate juveniles. This is stupid, folks. We can do a whole bunch better than that. So my message really today is dream and do. This could happen. Needs to get off the ground. Needs everybody to be on the same page. You need to at least fake liking each other. But you may be annoyed at times by other people. But my own style has been keep people in the tent. Unhealthy to have people outside the tent. You're doing something that will make an extraordinary difference in the future of the United States of America. You'll have more informed people. You'll have people who are participating. I come out of here optimistic about what you can and will do. Don't let the moment pass. I realize that things are tough at times and tight at times, and we have cost of living problems, and we have this absolute tragedy in Ukraine. But I want you to know that we got tragedies in our own community. Right in this community, a community that one part of it's doing really well and another part's not doing so well. And boy, it would be smart for everybody to have a chance to do well and to do good. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you, Doug.
Wow. I don't know what to say after something like that. I'm so moved. I want you to join me again in giving him a tremendous round of applause. This guy was in a car at 4 a.m. this morning to come up here to speak to us. I mean, I regard that as a heroic act, a heroic commitment to the cause, his cause, our cause, a cause that he's championed for nearly 3 decades. And I want to thank you so much, David Lawrence Jr. I want to take these few closing moments to remind you of the prophetic words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, life's most persistent question is, what are you doing for others? Well, today we have been presented an opportunity to answer that question. And it's going to take a community to answer that question. It's going to take a community to create the Gainesville Empowerment Zone Family Learning Center. We've received terrific support from our partners, as you've heard about this morning, and we look forward to even more support over the next months from them. But we also need help from you out in the audience and your friends and your contacts in order to close the deal on this transformative project. And there are a variety of ways in which you can do this. Some were shown on a slide, and maybe it'll come up again. You can send money to Gainesville4ALL, and the address, you want to put it up? Gainesville4ALL's website. I want to point out that Gainesville4ALL is also enrolled in the Community Foundation's Amazing Give, which is sponsored by the Community Foundation of North Central Florida. And that begins this Friday, I believe. If you buy through Amazon Smile, money comes to Gainesville4ALL. And this year, for the first year, Gainesville4ALL is listed as a part of the University of Florida Campaign for Charity. So if you're an employee of the University of Florida system, you can give money to Gainesville4ALL. I want to mention one other opportunity which isn't on the board. There's a fellow in the audience, Terry Clark. Stand up, Terry. Terry's a local urban planner and an avid motorcyclist, and he is establishing a campaign. He's sort of tentatively named it Gainesville4ALL Goes to Alaska, to raise awareness about and donations for Gainesville4ALL by having people pledge either a contribution for every mile or a lump sum contribution as he takes his motorcycle trip from Gainesville to Florida. How many miles is that? 5,000, 6,000?
Round trip, 10 to 12,000 miles.
Okay, 10,000 miles. If you volunteered or pledged a penny a mile, I think that would be $100 doing the quick math in my head. 2 cents a mile, that's 200. A half a cent would be 50. Anyway, he will, if you pledge to him, he will get a link. You'll get a link to his tracker and his blog, his trip blog. And he can be reached at terryandrewclark@gmail.com. Is that correct? That's your full name, middle name. Anyway, I want to close now with thanking the Harn Museum and its director, Leanne Chesterfield, who's not here. And most of all, Eric Siegel. Please stand up, Eric. Eric's the director of education and curator of academic programs at the Harn. And I will tell you, he and his staff have made this venue and this morning possible. And Eric and his staff bent over backwards to make sure that we had everything we needed to make it go. My heart to you. So I'll close on that, and I hope you walk out of here with the uplifting feeling that David Lawrence has just generated with his remarkable comments. And we hope we will hear from you in the future as we continue to move forward, raising the money that we need to transfer and make this idea and dream a reality. Thank you. I just learned that the Amazing Give is actually open now. Is that right?
It's open, the official day is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursday, but all of the donation pages are open now.
Okay.
Anyone who wants to go to that.
Thank you.